Hey, as many of you know, Heroes of the Storm is not the most successful game in the world. Actually, that's putting it quite lightly. And the fact that the development itself stopped is old news at this point. Many have tackled this topic before me, but I think it might be a good idea to get some insight on this situation from someone who actually plays the game for a change. We all know that the game was badly monetized and it didn't rake in any cash. But let's throw all that away. None of that would have mattered if people wanted to play the game. I think the main reason that Heroes failed is that when you get down to it, this game just isn't fun for a casual player. And this is coming from someone who really likes this game. Like, I have basically no quarrels with the gameplay whatsoever. The way that the game plays, to me, is practically perfect. There are minor improvements that I would make here and there, but all things considered, this is, in my opinion, one of the best multiplayer games ever made. I first played this game when Keltas was released, and then very infrequently, and mostly played it after the release of Deathwing. Which wasn't a very fun time, but if I'm being honest. My highest rank is Diamond 3, and I am almost exclusively an offlane player. But many people do not feel this way. This game was always unpopular. Ever since release, it was the weird one compared to League and Dota. And I know why. And the reason for this is just quick match. This is by all means the default mode of the game. It works like this. You pick a hero, you press ready. You immediately get into a match. You get a loading screen where you see your heroes, and the enemy heroes, and the map that you're playing on, and that's it. Now, despite what the Heroes of the Storm subreddit might make you feel, the problem is not the matchmaking, it's not smurfs, it's not 5 stacks, it's not some imaginary forced 50% win rate, none of those things. The main problem is with the design of the game mode itself. Can you guess what it is? I'm gonna give you a second. There's no draft. This is the #1 reason why this game is disliked in my opinion. Quick match is by far the worst way to experience the game, besides ARAM, I suppose. Allow me to explain why. First things first, hero matchups. The way that this game's heroes are designed, they are basically complete packages. There are no items, just talents. And there's only so much you can do with these talents to adapt to the situation. Even if they do, you might get them very late into the game, and they won't have as much of an impact. Let me give you an example. You want to play Illidan in quick match, as many people like to do apparently. The map you get is Brax's Holdout. Your team doesn't have another viable solo laner, so you make your way to the top lane to meet the enemy solo laner. The enemy solo laner is Sonya. You know what's going to happen? You are going to get stomped into the floor and probably get your tower destroyed before the first objective. Now let me emphasize that this game is not unbalanced. The meta that we got left with after the final balance patch is good. I would say that the egregiously bad heroes stand out more than the good heroes. A lot of heroes are viable, but it hasn't always been this way. Many times there were OP heroes, especially right after their release, like Deathwing had a 65% win rate for God's sake. But with a draft you could work around this, you could ban them. But when the game matches the teams randomly, tell me, does this seem fair to you? How about this? Can you guess which team won? I would wager that you probably can. And the worst thing about this is you know who's going to win. As soon as you get into the loading screen, you immediately know that you will be playing at a ludicrous disadvantage. And talents can only alleviate this issue so much. Second thing is the maps. It's a pretty similar issue actually. This being quick match, you have no idea which map you'll be playing on. This is basically the same issue as the previous one, because the way the heroes in this game are designed, some heroes are good on every map, and some of them are only good on some maps, which is fine, there's nothing wrong with this. Contrary to popular belief, every hero doesn't need to have the same pick rate for the game to be balanced, it's okay to have specialists. But with quick match, so many heroes are basically unplayable, because if you pick Zul, there's like a 30% chance that your hero is gonna be completely useless. I have fun laning with Zul on Braxis, for example, against Rexxar. And this extends to your teammates as well. You load into the game, it's Braxis, and there's Lost Vikings on your team. It's not a very good sight. I redded out the heroes and the character select that I would not pick in quick match, because the chance that they get a bad map or they get hard countered is just too high for me to suffer through it. Yeah, and your team can be all red. This, I think, is where much of the frustration comes from in quick match and why people don't like playing the game. You cannot really influence this at all either. You just load into a game with an intrinsic disadvantage that neither team could have predicted. So one team is just sitting there, fighting against all odds, against a team that can stomp them without any effort whatsoever. Third thing is the role system. The way that quick match works is, heroes are classified into roles in this game. And for every role there needs to be an equivalent on the enemy team. So you can't queue into a game with a healer and go up against a team that doesn't have one, for example. There are two problems with this. The first one is that the role system just doesn't really match what the hero does. Like, for example, these two heroes are both supports. These two heroes are both tanks. These two heroes are both bruisers. The issue is that these do not correspond to what the hero is actually expected to do in the team. A team that gets Uthra as a healer is not gonna have a fun time against a team with Alexstrasza. The second problem is that it's completely possible to get into a game with no healer and no tank. Or both. It's not usual to get into a game with 10 damage characters. What's the problem with this? Well, this game is not made to be played without a dedicated tank. And especially not without a healer. There are unusual heroes that can fill in the role of a tank situationally, usually if the team works around it somehow. But it can work, but no healer? You can't do anything without a healer. Without a tank, the issue is that nobody will ever start a fight, and the game consists of waiting for the enemy team to fuck up, or split pushing until you win and hope the enemy team can't coordinate enough to counter you. But without a healer? Like, even if a fight does happen, chances are that your team is like at 40% health maybe? Without a source of healing, you can't take objectives, you can't push towers, and you have to retreat immediately when the enemy team comes back. Much less so if you left an enemy alive. Like, if you leave Liming alive, you can still easily die to her spells. So the match consists of both teams avoiding each other and accomplishing basically nothing, and this is why the games stretch out to like 30 minutes plus. The alternative is that one team gets better self-sustain than the other and completely rolls them. All of these issues culminate into making quick match a really frustrating experience, where every match is a dice roll. You either get a good game, or a boring slug that you have almost no chance of winning. And this is the default game mode. This is what most people play. This is the first thing that you're introduced to. It's how you're supposed to learn how to play your heroes before going to ranked. It's the same problem that CSGO used to have. The casual part of the game is completely different from the competitive part of the game. So what ends up happening is that everyone in this game kind of sucks, because the game that's played above the medal ranks is completely different from what the casual players are playing. To give you an example, the role that I play is the offlaner. I would wager that most people playing this game probably don't even know what that is. Either that or they have a very skewed view of what it's supposed to do. And that's not all. People think that Abathur is a healer, they think Irel is a tank. They don't know what soaking means, and you can't blame them, because how are you supposed to know it if all you play is solo queue quick match? In any other MOBA, you get a hasten draft phase before the start of every game. Why doesn't Heroes have this? I don't know. But I am positive that it contributes heavily to why this game is disliked. The default game mode is just frustrating, and it inaccurately portrays how this game is actually designed to be played, to the detriment of the players. If this mode was supposed to be played less, then it should have been made more obvious. But in my opinion, it shouldn't have ever existed in the first place. And this is also the reason why the skill level is generally really low. You're probably looking at the footage in the background wondering what the hell I'm doing half the time, because I myself don't consider myself to be a very good player. But yet I'm in the second highest division. Quick match isn't the only reason that this game failed though. Another reason is that it really wasn't that good for the majority of its lifespan. In the state that it is now, it's amazing. I think the team did an excellent job. Almost everything that they changed was for the better. And if it wasn't, they reverted it, and I applaud them for that. I think that they did a great job. But early on, especially when it was released, this game was straight up bad. It looked like garbage. What the hell am I looking at? Why does everything look like mud? The talent system during this time was extremely scuffed as well. In the final version of the game, there are few occasions where some talents are shared among other heroes. like Bolt of the Storm or Block. But this was the standard back in the day. You had such classics as Sprint and Venom. Also Blizzard, with their limitless knowledge, decided that core to the design of the game, they should make an entire class of heroes whose entire purpose is to avoid enemies and push towers. You can see this in the pre-release material where they had a dedicated siege class. And after the game's release they had a dedicated specialist class, which was basically the same thing. Split pushers. Because everyone loves split pushing, am I right? I love being completely helpless against it because my team has 5 DPS heroes and 0 wave clear because this is quick match. Look at how fun this is, isn't this fun? Thankfully Blizzard got rid of this role entirely in 2018. And they reworked all of its heroes into respectable members of society. Nowadays the pushing power of heroes was greatly reduced, but I remember the horrors of Azmodan, Gazlowe, Zagara, Sylvanas, Sergeant Hammer, Nazeebo, even Abathur. Most heroes cannot deal with the strategy alone, and it absolutely dominated quick match, leading to more frustration for players who didn't want to engage in this strategy, or didn't play the heroes that were capable of countering it, because you want to do the objective, you want to fight the enemy team on fair terms. But then Zagara shows up on the other side of the map and gets twice the value of the objective that you just spent 2 minutes fighting over. Also, while this obviously isn't a problem these days, back when hero releases were frequent, Blizzard really struggled with balance. Like almost every single time a new hero came out, it would be very evidently overtuned. I know that this was done on purpose to build hype, or whatever, but I personally cannot stand it. Phoenix, Varian, Deathwing, Li Ming, all of these heroes were so busted on release that I just didn't want to play the game anymore. Also, the game was ludicrously expensive. Like today, when you download the game, you can pick one of a few hero packs that basically gives you a third of the entire roster. But before that, you started with nothing, and it took a long time to unlock a hero, or you could rely on the stupid free rotation. No wonder IGN gave it a 65. I would have given it a lot less, like personally. There's this 6.5 joke in the game. But if you ask me, they don't deserve to make that joke. The state of the game on release was horrible compared to what it developed into. But even back then, in comparison to other MOBAs, this game was pretty damn weak. Today though, I think the game is in an excellent state. I am happy that development stopped at such a good state for the game's balance. I would still recommend you try it if you want to. It's in the best state that the game's ever been. I was hoping that there could be community curated patch notes like in StarCraft, which also gets no updates. But it didn't. Well, such is life, I suppose. So I am patiently waiting for Microsoft to finally buy Blizzard so they can get the game back on track and add Minecraft Steve as a new hero. Thank you so much for watching. You can check out my other videos if you want to. There's 2 of them. Yeah.
Soon they shall pass in mine.
Don't forget to check the pockets. What?
Your killing spree's over, but you already knew that.
Mayhem. Oh, there goes the board. Pick your towel.
Ladies and gentlemen, start your engines.
Way to go, guys.
MVP.
Top 5 plays of all time.